Imagine this. A $3 million missile is launched to destroy a drone that costs about $50,000. This is not a hypothetical scenario. It is happening right now across modern battlefields. Advanced air defense systems are firing some of the most sophisticated interceptor missiles ever built to destroy low-cost, disposable drones built with simple engines and commercially available electronics. And this creates a dangerous question. If the cost of defense is 60 times higher than the cost of attack, how long can that defense realistically last? Because modern warfare is quietly changing. Victory is no longer decided only by technology, precision weapons, or tactical battlefield success. Increasingly, it is decided by economics, industrial capacity, production speed, and the ability to sustain a conflict without exhausting your own national resources. And that is where the math becomes dangerous. To understand why, we first need to look at the cost equation behind modern air defense. The United States and its allies rely heavily on advanced interception systems such as Patriot and the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense System, commonly known as THAAD. These interceptors are extraordinary engineering achievements. They use sophisticated radar guidance, advanced sensors, precision propulsion systems, and decades of research and development. But that sophistication comes at a price. Each interceptor missile can cost between $1 million and $3 million. Now compare that with the drones these systems are shooting down. Many modern loitering munitions rely on basic engines, relatively simple guidance systems, and widely available components. Systems like the Shahed series of drones can often be produced for somewhere between $35,000 and $50,000. This creates a striking imbalance. A defender may spend up to $3 million to destroy a drone that costs roughly $50,000 to produce. And in many cases, militaries cannot risk missing the target. To guarantee an interception, forces sometimes launch multiple interceptor missiles against a single incoming threat. That means millions of dollars can be spent in seconds to neutralize an attack that cost the attacker a fraction of that amount. When that equation repeats across dozens or even hundreds of drones, the financial burn rate escalates rapidly. This is why cheap drones are reshaping the logic of modern warfare. For decades, military power depended on highly advanced platforms such as fighter jets, aircraft carriers, and precision missile systems. These weapons were expensive, but they delivered overwhelming technological superiority. Drones changed that equation. Instead of relying on a small number of extremely sophisticated weapons, attackers can deploy large numbers of inexpensive systems. This introduces the concept of saturation attacks. The goal is no longer to defeat the enemy's defenses through superior technology. Instead, the objective is to overwhelm them through sheer volume. Even if most of the drones are intercepted, the defender may still spend far more money stopping the attack than the attacker spent launching it. Over time, this strategy begins to weaponize the defender's own defense budget. The attacker does not necessarily need to destroy every target. They only need to force the defender to burn through expensive interceptors faster than they can be replaced. Once the defensive inventory is depleted, critical infrastructure and military installations become far more vulnerable. This dynamic can threaten infrastructure that modern economies rely on every day. Many countries in the Gulf region, for example, depend heavily on desalination plants to produce drinking water from seawater. These facilities provide a large share of the region's freshwater supply. If an air defense network becomes exhausted, and even a small number of low-cost drones reach critical infrastructure, the consequences could be severe. This illustrates the leverage created by low-cost autonomous weapons. But the problem goes beyond the cost of individual missiles. It also involves industrial capacity. Interceptor missiles are extremely complex systems to manufacture. They require advanced electronics, precision components, specialized rocket motors, and carefully controlled production processes. Manufacturing these systems takes time. Production lines cannot simply increase output overnight. Expanding manufacturing capacity often requires years of investment, specialized labor, and long supply chains that stretch across multiple countries. Low-cost drones, by contrast, can be produced much more rapidly. Because they rely on simpler components and less specialized manufacturing, they can often be assembled in far larger numbers. This creates a significant production imbalance. If an attacker can manufacture drones faster than defenders can produce interceptor missiles, the defender may gradually face a shortage of interceptors. This is why industrial capacity has become such a critical factor in modern warfare. Wars are no longer determined solely by battlefield performance. They are also shaped by factories, supply chains, and the ability to sustain production over long periods of time. The economic dimension of this challenge is equally important. Large-scale interception campaigns require enormous financial resources. Defense budgets must cover not only the cost of each interceptor missile, but also the long-term procurement of replacement systems. In the United States, defense spending already represents a substantial portion of federal expenditure. At the same time, the federal government carries a large national debt and must also fund major domestic programs such as Social Security and Medicare. When military operations require the rapid replacement of expensive interceptors, governments may need to authorize additional defense spending or emergency supplemental funding. These decisions can increase fiscal pressure and expand government borrowing. Over time, sustained military spending interacts with the broader economy through interest rates, government bond markets, and public budgets. This is why the economics of warfare cannot be separated from national economic stability. The cost imbalance between drones and interceptors forces military planners to rethink how air defense should operate in the future. Several alternative approaches are already being explored. One approach involves developing lower-cost counter-drone technologies that can neutralize incoming threats without relying on expensive interceptor missiles. Electronic warfare systems can disrupt communications between drones and their operators or interfere with their navigation systems. Directed energy weapons, including laser-based defenses, are also being studied because they may offer a much lower cost per engagement once deployed. Instead of firing a multi-million-dollar missile, a laser system could potentially disable drones using electrical power generated on site. Layered air defense strategies are also becoming more important. Rather than relying solely on expensive long-range interceptors, militaries may combine multiple defensive systems designed to stop different types of threats at different ranges and costs. The goal is to reduce the economic imbalance between offense and defense, because in the long run, a defense system must be financially sustainable. Modern warfare is entering a period where economics, industry, and production capacity play an increasingly decisive role. Technology still matters, but the ability to manufacture equipment at scale, maintain supply chains, and sustain long campaigns without exhausting national resources may ultimately determine strategic outcomes. The battlefield may be visible in headlines and breaking news, but the deeper struggle often happens in factories, budgets, and industrial planning. In the emerging era of drone warfare, victory may belong not only to the side with the most advanced weapons, but to the side that can afford to keep fighting the longest. And that means the real battlefield of modern war may not only be the sky or the sea, it may be the balance between industrial capacity and economic endurance. What makes this shift so important is that it forces a new question about power itself. For most of modern history, military dominance belonged to the country with the most advanced weapons. But the economics of drone warfare are introducing a different equation: industrial capacity, production speed, and the ability to sustain conflict without destroying your own economy. In other words, the decisive advantage may no longer belong to the nation with the most expensive weapons, but to the nation that can produce and replace systems at scale. And that raises a critical question. If defending against a $50,000 drone requires a $3 million interceptor, who actually wins a long war built on that equation? In moments like this, headlines focus on explosions, but the deeper shifts happen in economics, supply chains, and industrial capacity. If you want to understand the structural forces shaping global power and markets, subscribe to ETN, because what you're seeing today is only the first layer.